By one of my brothers in Islam, brother Aki Wilkins, Assalamu alaikum. And mashallah, the brother came to us directly from work. He works as a contractor and was doing some painting today. But alhamdulillah, that's one of the good things that the Muslim brothers get involved in, working and doing something positive with their lives. And Aki, as we begin, just tell us a bit about yourself and your background up to the point where you became Muslim.
Okay, my name is Aki Wilkins. I'm 35 right now, and before I became Muslim, I was just a kid. I was young. I was about 16 when I was introduced to Islam, and it wasn't a very deep understanding that I got, but I understood some, and I didn't study like I should. I didn't do the things that I should have done.
But just to fill in just a little background about your upbringing and the environment which you came up in.
Okay, I grew up in a single parent, home. My mother raised me. My mother and my grandmother. I, floated from mother to grandmother, grandmother to mother, like that. My upbringing was pretty good. As I look back on it, they did their best, and I think they did a good job because I know my morals are sound, and coming up. I mean, I made good choices coming up, but I ended up making bad choices later on. So,
now, is the bad choices just affiliated with the people you associated with?
Exactly.
And you were just moving with them, and you might have been caught up in something which is just, if you're with those people, what happens to them is going to happen to you.
Exactly. The influence, that's the bottom line. The influence, the crowd that I chose to hang with, the influence that they, gave me was the wrong influence, and I made those choices to do the wrong things, following the crowd.
So so coming from this environment, when did you first hear something about Islam?
When I first really took Islam to heart, I went to jail.
And went to jail for what?
I went to jail for petty larceny. And I stayed in jail for about 6 months. Stayed in jail for about 6 months, and it was his brother that was arrested. This was in Virginia Beach. He told me that he was arrested for handing out the pamphlets, who is Allah, who is the Prophet, and
he was arrested for handing out these pamphlets?
He was arrested for these things, and it could have been more, Allahu A'lam, it could have been more Allahu A'lam. But what he did have when he came in the jail was literature. He had dawah material. So I was able to read, and that time, in jail doing nothing, I was able to read and learn more about Islam. Pick up, everything that I was taught and told when I was younger, 14, 15, 16. Now it started to, come back. It started to ring bells, and then, now I'm paying it more attention. So that was like my first conscious look into Islam. And
so we went there for 6 months, and you got out.
Right, I got out. And of course, nothing changes. I really hadn't changed.
Because you came out and just went right back with the people.
Right back to the same thing, right. And then eventually I was incarcerated again, this time for grand larceny and embezzlement. And I was incarcerated for 5 years. That 5 years I spent at a therapeutic community. So
what does that mean, a therapeutic community?
That is like a behavior modification / drug addiction program. It's the whole prison is a program. And I stayed there 4 years. And while
But let me just ask you, brother, because unfortunately a lot of the youth and young people from the movies, from the rap videos, they think the prison is something cool. They think that going to prison, I'm going to get some credibility on the street, that it's no thing to go to prison. What's the reality of going to prison?
The reality of going to prison is loneliness. You are once you enter the jails, the loneliness starts. Everyone that you thought, you know, that was your friend on the street, or that was my partner, you know, that was my Aki on the street, you know, even family members, they start to taper off. You know, they taper off. Eventually, you're there alone. And believe it or not, when you come home, it's the same thing. You know, out of sight, out of mind. And that's how it is. You know, so in the penitentiaries, some of the guys that we thought were the coolest on the street doing whatever we looked up to, or we thought were the, you know, the best of the best, you know, in the penitentiary, they're the worst of the worst. You know, the penitentiary.
Like maybe in the street they had a lot of respect and a lot of power. In the penitentiary they had nothing.
They have nothing.
Because there was somebody there who had more than they did.
Either had more than they did, had been there longer, so they've acquired, you know, more of the penitentiary items, you know, or penitentiary things that, you know, make you a big man in the penitentiary, so to say. You know, you may have more cigarettes than anybody. You may run the gambling pool, you know, or something like that. Something, you know, that's outrageous. And when you indulge in things like that, that's when the violence comes. You know, and it's almost, unless you grab hold to the rope of Allah, you know, you are going to have a hard time in the penitentiary. You know, unless you have a strong family that is going to be there for you for the 5, 10, 15, 20 years that the judicial system is going to give you, you're going to be alone, and it's going to be the worst time of your life.
Yeah, so it's not correct for young people to think I can go out in these streets, do what I have to do, and I can go to prison, and prison is no problem.
No, that's not the correct.
Do you find a lot of young people in prison?
It's full of young. That's what it is. It's the prison.
And what's it like? I mean, you see them like when they first enter, their first nights there. I mean, they was the man on the street, but how are they on that first night or first couple of days there in prison?
Just about everyone that enters the jails and the prison